What about now? All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of Lancaster County Council to order. Welcome everyone here tonight as we conduct our business here in Lancaster County. And before we get started, we have Mr. Terry Graham up here. It's his birthday today, so wish all Mr. Graham a happy birthday. And Mr. Marstall, you want to make an introduction? Right.
I'd be honored to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members, and those in the audience and watching on live stream TV. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce a new staff member for Lancaster County. It's a position that we filled that has a crucial role for the organization as our Chief Financial Officer. So I'm pleased to introduce to everyone tonight Ms. Sabrina Harris. Sabrina has a background, one, as an Army military veteran, so pleased to have her experience and background as a veteran. But she also has her MBA. She served in local government. Most recently, she worked for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, where she served as their budget leader. And so happy to have those skills. But she will be our Chief Financial Officer, working with our entire finance team, the Assessor's Office, Delinquent Tax, Register of Deeds, Procurement, and a big portfolio for our Finance Department. So Sabrina, if you'd like to please stand up and be acknowledged. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to many years of using her skill set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We got a packed house for you on your first meeting. Let's move to our pledge to allegiance. Would you please rise and join Councilmember Jose Luis as he leads us in our pledge of allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed on us as citizens, as family members, and as residents of Lancaster County. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to listen to our constituents and to do what is right for all of Lancaster County. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, let's move on down to our approval of our agenda. To have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion from Mr. Carnes. I think I heard Mr. Blackman second it. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval of our agenda tonight. Let's go on down. We have our citizens' comments. Please bear in mind this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak in the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. First, we have Gary Aldine. And DYCL DeClement. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Not a problem. I just want to start by telling you that I am
Name and address.
Ma'am, if you could pull the mic down to you.
Name
I
and
wanted to
address.
tell you that I was a business owner at one time, and before I moved here. The last meeting we came, Kathy and I went up to Terry, and Kathy told him we were against the asphalt company coming in. And Terry said, well, listen, and you'll change your mind. I walked away, and I said, well, they made up their mind already. You had somebody come up from the asphalt company, and I think she was the owner, or to be the owner, and told everybody, well, I really need to know today, meaning the last meeting, because she had things on order. She had a special rate for all her stuff. Well, as I said, you all went ahead and okayed her to order the stuff, and you okayed her to continue. So yeah, you made up your mind except for Jose. He's the only one that turned it down. As a business owner, I would never go ahead and sit here in front of a board and tell you that I have things to order. And we had to come up to the business and talk to the board many times because we were in construction and we had to build up the houses and decks and et cetera. So I feel that you guys all felt that you were okaying this ahead of time, which I find disgusting, but that's okay. You go ahead and we'll talk about rezoning now. Rezoning the areas, these areas could be asphalt or other contaminated businesses coming in. Asphalt alone, some people will say the smells mean money. Well, it sure does. It could mean money to companies, doctors, hospitals, and even funeral homes to all of yous. And I just don't understand how you can go ahead and allow this to happen. We're supposed to have clean air, and this is not clean air. As far as the smells in the area, when you smell this from asphalt or other companies, but especially asphalt I'm talking about, you're talking heart attacks, pulmonary fibrosis, leukemia, genotoxicity, which is birth defects. That's what you're smelling. And all these companies have smells, and that comes through the air. And I don't care how far away they are, they're not that far from our houses. And I could keep on going, but I won't, because you're polluting our air if you go ahead and accept this. As far as you're doing this, I think it's disgraceful that we all bought our houses and it's going to go down if you go ahead and rezone to companies like this, because we won't sell our houses. But if you don't care, that's fine. We're just talking about that we voted and we had you come and you're supposed to be representing us. I hope you really take the time and think about representing us and not passing this disgraceful bill. And I also want to know how many people here are for it.
Ma'am, would you finish up? Keep your comments to.
Well, I just wanted to know
Council.
how many people came here because
Ma'am,
they're
we're going to
against-
hear from them. I've got a list of them that wish to speak. Thank you. We got Danielle Jordan.
Good evening. I am a Treetops resident.
Would you
And
state your
first,
name and address? Your address?
Daniel Jordan. I live in
Address.
Treetops.
Okay,
Is that appropriate?
that's good.
Okay. First, I would like to thank Indian Land Council member Jose Luis for notifying his constituents of the possibility of this plant being located in our area. Having worked in the power generation industry, in fossil, nuclear, and hydro, as a chief mechanic, I'm well versed on the products that are used to make asphalt. Number 6 oil or bunker oil, as it was called, bitumen, etc. Frequently, the mechanical seals on our fuel oil pumps and constant differential pumps would fail, needing replacement. These are pumps that would supply the oil to the burner decks. MSDS sheets were given to us so we would know how hazardous the material we were working with and what to wear, et cetera, et cetera. So besides being a known carcinogen, there was a long list of maladies that this product could cause. So I am here tonight to voice my opposition to this plant. There are well over 4,000 homes along the Van Wyck corridor in Indian Land. These are taxpayers that provide millions of dollars in tax revenue to Lancaster County. Plus, we subsidize small businesses, restaurants, and everything that's the heart of Indian land. So the last thing we want to battle is the smell of an asphalt plant, along with the odor we receive now from the new Indy plant. Because the prevailing wind patterns are from west to east, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that, but that's the prevailing wind pieces in this country. So we would be right in the bullseye, as we are with New Indy, to be inundated with toxic fumes carried by the wind. This would make people ill, would devalue our properties, and more than likely force homeowners to potentially take legal action. I respectfully ask the council members to say no to putting this plant in our backyard. I see this as a terrible idea and an insult to the taxpaying citizens of Indian land. Thank you.
Please hold your applause. I think there's some misinformation. I usually don't comment. Would you care if this is Miss Allison Harden, the planning director, not planning director, she's the chief of the development services. I apologize.
Can you show me the slides real quick, and I can help with this? One of the things that was discussed in recent meetings was about where the heavy industrial zones are located. And in the discussion, I had indicated there might be some properties in the Indian Land area that were subject to this. I went back and did the map again. Because I've been with the county as a development director since June, I'm still learning a lot of the lingo in a lot of the areas. And I'd like to clarify that there are no heavy industrial zones in the Indian Land voting districts at all. All the heavy industrial zones are south of 5. And I was prepared to talk about this during the presentation, and maybe this will help to know that there's nobody in the Indian Land area that's at risk of being close to anything that's allowed in the heavy industrial zone, be it an asphalt plant or anything else, because there is no heavy industrial property north of 5.
The only property on number 5 is that
It's on Rock Hill Highway.
Which is Highway 5.
existing
It's
industry.
on the south side. It's on the south side of Highway 5. But I use the terms that are used on a lot of the meetings here about where the delineation is of everything north of 5 and south of 5. There's nothing north of 5. There are properties on 5, but not as many as in the rest of the county.
Okay, we'll address this.
Thank you.
We'll go on through the citizens' comments. Kathy Storm.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Storm. I live at 5025 Redwood Grove Trail in Treetops. I am filled with wonder tonight. And part of that wonder is I wonder what you all use for making decisions that you make that come before the council. Is it your own personal opinion? Do you get feedback from your constituents? Do you have newsletters, surveys, polls? Do you make an effort to keep your constituents informed of current activities before the council? My experience observing the council meetings, and I've been to a number of them, is that even when residents come to speak, as I'm speaking at this moment, it has very little bearing on your decisions. You've made up your mind beforehand, and I don't know what has gone into that decision-making, but it appears to most of us in the county that we are not considered in your decision-making. I do want to thank Councilman Luis, for he's the one and only person that seems to be taking great measure, and wanting to delay decisions that should not be made until all information is available to make a sound decision on the future of this county and the future of our residents. So I just feel that this is not representative government, it's bureaucracy. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Janice Hooper.
Common mistake, but it's Janice Hopper, 6059 Kings Canyon Way. I am also a Treetops homeowner. I would like to know what the point of having zoning restrictions if they can be constantly changed as zoning variances are requested. With the exception of Councilman Luis, the remaining council members seemed more concerned about the financial impact to the applicant, Ms. Lineberger. The fact that a delay in settling this zoning issue would present a financial hardship to some degree to her asphalt company because they already had projects and business lined up, it is unfortunate, but that is the price of doing business. There never should have been some prior decisions made on her part before going ahead and making sure this was all settled. Her response that air quality would not be impacted from an asphalt plant is certainly a contraindication from EPA reports. Haven't we learned our lesson after New Indy's empty promises to operate their plant safely? Now we have to rely on another business, the asphalt company, that they will maintain proper levels of the additives that are necessary in order to keep the smell of the asphalt fumes within EPA guidelines. Do we now have to worry about the documented acute effects of exposure to asphalt fumes? Headaches, skin rashes, fatigue, reduced appetite, throat and eye irritation, and constant coughing. The dramatic weakening of the existing HI zoning that all but one member voted in favor of will apply to all future applications. So if companies from the clay manufacturing, glass, lime, gypsum, cement, concrete, and other non-metallic mineral product manufacturing, that will affect their ability to build their plants. Add to that, it will include facilities that engage in recycling, storage processing, resale, and reuse of recovered materials. None of these changes are operationally needed by any of these industries. So we ask you do what is best for your constituents and vote against the proposed text amendment application ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Glenn Trutner. Glenn Trutner.
Hello, I'm Glenn Trutner. I'm also from Treetops, as you can probably tell from the badge. 3079 Oliver Stanley Trail. And I'm here to just point out a few very key issues here, one of which just became more key in my mind. One is that asphalt plants do put out dangerous emissions. It's part and parcel of making asphalt. There's nothing you can do about it, but we do need asphalt. According to the EPA, these include things like formaldehyde, hexane, phenol, and a bunch of other stuff. I think one of the earlier speakers was much more knowledgeable on that than I am. They can cause cancer, central nervous system problems, liver damage, and a whole bunch of other nasty, nasty things. So that now that we have discovered that these are actually allowed in our heavy industrial plants, it seems like we should be strengthening, not weakening, the requirements for installing one of those plants. There are places that, even within Lancaster County, where these plants can go, where they will cause a minimal problem, but this is not it. Secondly, the plant site is wrong on 1490 Kershaw Camden Highway. It is too small, based even on the existing HI requirements. It is only 6 acres in size. They used the wrong form and should have submitted it as a zoning variance request. They did not, but they certainly still can if you vote this down. That way, it would not make changes to all of the HI zone properties throughout Lancaster County. And I was thinking, how let me just point out one of the weakening to HI provisions that's there, which is to reduce the separation requirements from other zone parcels by 81%, from 2,640 feet to 500 feet. In the community I live in, 500 feet is 10 houses. And I can't imagine anything being 10 houses away from this plant or a plant similar to this. You know, I know all those people. It's, you know, it's beyond belief. It puts you basically wherever they are located, right next door to this plant, and puts the plant in the yardage where their neighbors are located. There is no urgency to this request, other than that which may affect the applicant. There is no need for this plant. They mentioned there were 4 plants nearby before. There are 7, all within a few miles of Lancaster County, and possibly more. I didn't do a real thorough research on it, but I found at least 7. Another thing about the urgency, when this started back in the first reading, supposedly these plants weren't allowed anywhere. They weren't allowed in HI zoning. Then we discovered, sometime between the first and second reading, that yes, they were already included in the HI zoning, so they could be built there. Last meeting, we were told definitively that there are 14 HI properties north of 5, all of which could have these plants in them. Today, there are none. So I think it is entirely premature for this council to be looking at this, and it should be sent back for a little bit more homework before you make a decision that's going to impact all of these HI zonings, however and wherever they may be. Ronald Reagan once said that the United States economy was stronger because it could produce both guns and butter. I think Lancaster County is strong enough, it's big enough, it is diverse enough that it can provide a safe, pleasant environment for its residents and other businesses, and still find places to put emissions-intensive industries like this.
Okay.
Someplace that's far enough
Go
away.
ahead and wrap it up, please.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill Lenz. L-I-N-S, Bill and Bonnie.
Bill Lenz, 5070 Big Bend Drive and Treetops. I've been here a year and a half, and I just have to tell you, yes, the new Indy plant has been my exposure here to Lancaster. And the air when I bought the house was great, but it's not that way now. 17 days of this month I've counted and smelled that odor. I can't imagine why we would want to put in more plants in an area that's already challenged with the environment. We can do better. We can. And I was just reading about how much fumes, how many tons for a small asphalt plant, how many tons of bad air goes into the environment is incredible. So, yes, I would vote no. Thank you for your time.
Bonnie Lenz.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Lenz. I live at the same place that Bill Lenz lives, 5070 Big Bend. And as you can see, there's quite a few members from Treetops here. There are also several people that I've talked to in Sun City, which is 4,000 homes, as we are over 700 homes in our neighborhood. Again, we've lived here a year and a half, and our experience with this new Indy was terrible. And again, when people ask me about living here, I say, love South Carolina, do not love the smell, don't like the roads with all the potholes and no street lights, but we're getting used to that part. But I can't imagine wanting to get used to toxic fumes, toxic smells, and regardless of where it is, it's going to be, it's going to be close enough that it's going to cause damage to very many residents, which is going to cause our homes to depreciate. We just bought here. We're hoping to stay a while, but if we have industrial and heavy metals and things like that, I can't imagine why anybody would want to. So we're asking your council members to please consider the residents, please consider your contingents, and to vote no against this heavy metals and all the other plants, because once you allow one, you're setting a precedence for other ones to come in. So again, I'm up here to say I adamantly am against this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I can read the first name and the last name. Schellberger, I can't decipher it. Jeffrey M. I apologize.
The podium moved. I'm Jeffrey Michael Schwartz, and I live at 6024 Kings Canyon Way in the Treetops Development. I'm going to take a completely different track, ladies and gentlemen. I think my fellow treetoppers have dealt with the air quality issue. I'm going to deal with the traffic issue. We now have two major developments coming in off of 521 that, according to your state DOT, will bring 26,000 additional vehicles every day to Target and Costco. Every one of these trucks that will come to this plant, if we look at the smallest truck, which is a truck you usually see when they are doing asphalt work on our roads, is a mere small 5,100 pounds of asphalt. There's another truck that's even bigger, which is being used in more and more situations, that holds 80,000 pounds. Now, if these plants are going to be generating tons of asphalt in order to be profitable, you're going to have hundreds of these heavy-duty vehicles on our roads which can't handle normal traffic now. You know, if you go down Van Wyck, we have potholes we never had before. If you go on Steel Hill, just to get to 5, their potholes are getting worse. Who's going to stop these vehicles from going on those roads? I don't know. So we have to look at the entire quality of life here. It's not just the potential pollution that they're talking about, but it's the quality of life, being able to get from here to there, to a hospital, to a doctor, to a restaurant, to Harris Teeter, to Publix. We're going to have all this additional traffic, and our roads are going to get torn up. I don't believe that this issue has been looked at, and that, to me, is a major factor. Thank you all for your time. Please vote against this plan.
Thank you. Bruce Cohen.
My name is Bruce Cohen, and I'm at 7199 Chrysanthemum Road. And I wanted to talk about the financial issue, but first I was caught off guard that the wind can be stopped at Route 5. Joe Biden, John Kerry, and you can stop the weather. That is great.
Please direct your comments
yes.
at council and not at staff.
I was just caught by surprise.
All right.
Doesn't mean I dislike you. So, anyways, you know, financially, we moved down here. I ran a multi-million-dollar company, like my sister Ann, who spoke before. I climbed trees for 30 years. Part of my business was paving. I moved a lot of dirt in my life. I got to tell you, it's not repaving these roads. It's digging out the roads, putting down more inches of gravel underneath, and then 2 extra inches of blacktop on top, or else you're going to get nothing but holes and ripples like you have in 521. 521 is built for these trucks, and it's still not handling it. You think Route 5 is going to take it? Do you have the millions of dollars in hand to redo, not repave, redo the roads from scratch? Do you have it? Financially, when this, I just bought. I don't expect my house to drop in value. there must be between Walnut Creek, Sun City, Treetops, and other places, it has to be 10,000 houses. I don't know how many retired lawyers are in this place, okay? Now, I don't want to put any business out, but reality says this will be just another company that died due to lawsuits because they won't be able to handle it. Do you, and with the dropping of the value of the houses, do you guys have the money to cover this? Did you get a bond? Did you get a $100 million bond? Do you require that? Is it in your hands to cover the lawsuits? I mean, you're talking retired lawyers that have nothing better to do. I've seen companies go under, just even that didn't do anything wrong. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for the entire world of this area to look at you and say, because of you, the company went under, and now all those chemicals, which are not being handled, are just sitting there seeping? Because that's what happens when a company goes under. The chemicals just seep, and next thing you know, we have Camp Lejeune, because you guys did not go far enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny Beck. Kenny Beck.
Hi, Ken Beck from Sun City. Having come for a couple of years now to all the various, well, a number of meetings here, I would just like to ask the council, and from what you saw tonight, to please slow down the planning process. Talk to the planning board. What I've seen is when Costco came in and it was approved, a lot of discussion, but part of the discussion was the final traffic report had not been approved yet. It was close, but it hadn't been done. Now we're seeing this, and there's been a couple other issues. At the last meeting, I believe, Terry, you said there was something in one of the proposals that had already been passed. There was a conflict of interest potentially. I wish that you would slow down the process and work with the planning board, because at the last meeting, someone said, this has been going on for months, but we just got the report last month. If the planning board was working with you, getting input, the final results might be better, and it might be a better result if everything is slowed down so everybody has input, especially communication to the public before a meeting. What's being looked at? Does anybody have input? So I'd just like to ask you to slow down, get better communication to the public before and during the planning process, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I got Lee. Is it Herrera?
That's okay. My handwriting is shaky. I apologize for that. Thank you for letting me speak. I agree. I am from, my name is Lee Olvera. I live on Folly Lane in Sun City. And I think I've got some other Sun City people here with me. We're very dismayed. But we would like to thank Mr. Graham and Mr. Luis, I think, for being opposed to this project. We certainly are. We have 3,000 houses in Sun City. And I think as soon as I get the word out to all the Sun City residents, they're not going to be happy about this project. New Indy is south of 5, and we all know the impacts upon our neighborhoods with the smell and everything else that we've gotten from New Indy. So we don't understand how putting an asphalt plant south of 5 is going to make the smell be any better or mitigate the smell. And I'd also like to say, would you approve this if it was in your neighborhood? Your neighborhood? Your neighborhood? Yeah, I don't think you probably wouldn't be happy. Again, I'm going to take up less time because I didn't have a prepared speech, but I agree with everybody else who has talked here, and I hope that you will vote against this project. It's just too close to residential neighborhoods, and Sun City and even Treetops to some extent our elderly residents. You can see I'm kind of old. And we already have health conditions. We really don't need, smells that are going to give us respiratory problems and is going to give us nasal problems and everything else on top of the health issues that we might already be facing. So thank you very much. Took less time.
Thank you. All right, we have Mark and Kathy Mazira. I'm close.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Mark Mizer. I reside at 3338 Xandra Court in Legacy Park. My wife and I are new to the area, about a year or so. I had retired from Northeast PA, moved to the beach, thought I was going to enjoy the beach, and my grandson was born. And they live in Weddington, and now they've blessed us with a granddaughter as well. So we decided to move up here. Love Indian land, love the area. Didn't want to go anywhere into North Carolina, and very happy to be here. I don't have a lot of information on this. I just want to say that I've been listening to everyone that has spoken. They were well prepared, well reasoned, very informative. At this point, I can't add anything to what they've said, other than it seems that council is rushing in this decision. And so if the facts that have been presented, the feelings that have been presented, the information that's been presented doesn't deter you from voting and have you vote no, I would just remind you that we get to vote at the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have 6 more electronic.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and County Council, you each have physical copies of the emails that were sent in at your seats, and these will also be attached to the legal minutes in the clerk's office. The first one is from Jeffrey Schwartz, Lancaster, South Carolina, regarding Ordinance 2023-1879. He wrote that he was concerned about the environmental and traffic impact on the quality of lives. The second one was from Donna Ominsky in Indian Land, South Carolina. She wrote in opposition to Ordinance 2023-1879 due to pollution and health concerns. The third one was from Trudy and Ken Rosas from Lancaster, South Carolina. They wrote in regarding their opposition to Ordinance 2023-1879. The fourth one was from Julie Kiker from Indian Land, South Carolina, regarding Ordinance 2024-1888. She stated that Marvin Academy is the most affordable private school in the area and that it would greatly benefit Indian Land families while the school board sorts out overcrowding issues. The fifth one is from Karen and William Caspar in Lancaster, South Carolina. They wrote in opposition to zoning changes for HI, and they are against the setback change. The sixth one is from Shelley and Chris Heckert from Lancaster, South Carolina. They wrote in regarding that you should keep in mind to keep pollution industries away from housing developments and to keep positive, healthy growth in Lancaster. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Simpson. That concludes our citizens' comments today, and let's move on down to our special presentations. We have our audit presentation for the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023 for Lancaster County. It's presented by Grant Davis, CPA, Director, Malden and Jenkins and Subsidiaries, LLC.
Mr. Chairman, as Grant comes forward, I'm pleased to see so many in the audience tonight to hear our annual financial update. We did close our books on June 30th, went through the obligated audit, came out with another clean audit, and Mr. Davis will highlight for you. We will have the full document detail. He has his PowerPoint slide for everyone tonight, but we will have the full audit with all the funds for council later on this week. But Mr. Davis will highlight findings from the audit firm this year. So, Mr. Davis, welcome back to Lancaster County.
Thank you all for having me. And again, my name is Grant Davis. I'm a partner with Malden Jenkins out of Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm happy to be here to present the results of our financial statement audit. And obviously prepared a PowerPoint that I'll go through with you all to communicate those those results. The first part here is just to give you a little bit of information about who we are as a firm. I don't think we're new to you all. We've been auditing the county for a couple of years now, but governmental auditing is a significant part of what we do on an annual basis, and this chart is basically just going to give you some information here. I won't read it to you, but again, just for your viewing pleasure. As we get to our opinion, we've ultimately issued an unmodified opinion on the county's financial statements for fiscal year 23. That's really not glamorous language, but it's really the only acceptable result in a financial statement audit. So a clean opinion has been issued. You can see what our responsibilities are, which is to express that opinion, and ultimately the financial statements are the responsibility of the county, their preparation and all the details that go into them. We've also issued a second opinion, and this is not unique to this fiscal year, but in any year that the county spends more than $750,000 in federal monies, it triggers what's called a compliance audit, or what we call a single audit. We have to issue an opinion on the county's spending of those federal monies in accordance with federal guidelines and standards, and ultimately we have conducted such an audit this year and have issued an unmodified opinion on it as well. Basically stating that in our opinion, the county spent the money that was federally sourced in accordance with all prescribed guidelines. So another clean opinion. You'll notice there that last sentence on the slide there, about $4.9 million in total monies from the federal government expended in this fiscal year. We audited about $2.5 million of that in the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund major program. And again, a clean opinion on that. The county has prepared an ACFR, what we call an ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for fiscal year 23. You'll notice when you get the document, and you're probably already aware of this, but the county submitted the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for fiscal year 22 to the Government Finance Officers Association and received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from that body. That is an international body who is completely otherwise unaffiliated with the county and grades that using a pretty significant criteria set. And it's certainly something to continue to be celebrated, that the county has basically gone above and beyond in its financial reporting commitments by continuing to prepare this document and ultimately be awarded that certificate. Just a few highlights to give you for the year ended fiscal year 23. Government-wide financial analysis is what I'll call this. This is all the county's funds as a whole. And again, this is from just a very high level. About $326 million in total assets. The largest portion of that, $326 million, are what we call capital assets, and those are things like infrastructure, vehicles, buildings, so forth and so on. And those are reported net of accumulated depreciation, that making up, again, about $140 million of the $326. Total liabilities of about $128 million, and this ultimately gives us equity, or what we call in this government-wide statement, net position of about almost $200 million, and that's up about $30 million from fiscal year 22. You can see the second half of that slide, about $128 million in total revenues versus $98 million in total expenses, and again, that giving us a $30 million increase in net position. If you take a look at the general fund, just it individually here, same kind of analysis here, but a few other things to note. $142 million in total assets of the general fund alone versus $66 million in total liabilities. This gives us fund balance as a whole of $71.3 million, and that's broken up into a couple of different categories. Predominantly restricted, assigned, and unassigned, and the unassigned portion of the general fund being about $54.2 million at the end of fiscal year 23. And if you look at that, you can see second to last bullet there, $66.8 million in expenditures for fiscal year 23. If you just simply divide that by 12 months, that gives us a spending per month of about $5.6 million a month. And if we look at fund balance based on that spending level of $5.6 million a month, the county had about almost 13 months of total fund balance on hand at June 30, 2023. And if we break that down a little bit further, you can see this as well. To unassigned fund balance, that equals about almost 10 months of unassigned fund balance. So if you consider where you are in where your year end is and what your most significant revenue source is, being property taxes, which are predominantly collected in January, to be at June and have unassigned fund balance that can get you beyond January to when that significant revenue source is collected, it's certainly an extremely healthy place to be, ultimately very positive. Just to continue that thought, $76.2 million in total revenues, again, about 67 in expenditures. This gives an increase in the general fund's fund balance of about $9 million from 2022 to 2023. This is just simply a chart that breaks down revenues by major type. Again, you can see the biggest slice of the pie is property taxes, which is not atypical of county governments. Similar chart, this looking at expenditures, the largest slice of the pie here, then yellow being public safety, again, very typical for county governments. This is just a look at the county's fund balance of the general fund alone over the past 5 years and how it has continued to grow. A few other things to note and mention to you, we'll ultimately issue in conjunction with the hard copies of the document that we'll get to you later this week, a document that we call our auditor's discussion and analysis. And the purpose of that document is to communicate to you all in writing the things that we are required to communicate as a result of conducting our audit. I'll go through a few of those here tonight. I'm not going to leave anything out that's important, but those communications are things like we are independent of the county. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. The financial statements themselves do include management's judgments and estimates. We've ultimately reviewed those judgments and estimates and applied our auditing procedures to them to make sure that they are, in our opinion, reasonable and fairly state the position of the county. We did not have any what we call past audit adjustments, and these are things like we have not identified any amounts that need to be adjusted and then decided not to adjust them or require the county to adjust them. We didn't have any disagreements with management. We didn't encounter any significant difficulties in dealing with management and conducting the audit. Last thing here, there are a few new accounting standards that are upcoming in the next couple of years, which has been the trend over the last, decade now. Each year, the audit requires more time and more effort, both from the county's personnel and from ours. And the GASB continues to make our life interesting, to say the least, on the new financial accounting requirements for counties. But beyond that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding the audit process or anything like that, if you have any.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question. So as you're going through kind of the projections and the analysis of 12.8 months, does that take into account the expenses that we had in the prior year, or are you taking into account all the increases in the new budget that we approved?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it's based on fiscal year 23 spending.
Okay.
Not projected forward.
Okay. So it's the prior year.
Right.
Okay.
Assuming spending levels remain at the exact same amount as they were in fiscal year 23, it's whatever those months.
So it doesn't include all the wage increases, everything that we approved in the new budget?
No, sir. And the reason being is we're not making projections going forward. We're auditing a year that has been closed.
Understood. Thank you.
It's simply July 1 of 2022 to June 30th, 2023 that you're using for the expenses in your illustration.
That's correct.
Yes.
All right. Any more questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as he sits down, I'd like to acknowledge Monique Beasley in our finance team. She's our auditing basically lead on this year, so I want to thank her for her time and effort in working with the auditing firm. I appreciate their work. Thank you, Monique.
All right, let's move on down to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda item 7A.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Mosteller, a second from Ms. McGriff. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's move down to our non-consent agenda, 8A. We have third reading of ordinance 2023-1879 regarding amending the Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO, regarding chapters 2, 5, and 10 to add a definition and regulations for non-metallic mineral products manufacturing. Applicant is Kim Lineberger on behalf of KHC Real Estate LLC. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. From Ms. McGriff. Second from Mr. Mostello. Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir, and I would like to echo the thanks for the public turning out for the items. And right after this one is an item actually in their jurisdiction in Indian Land about a school going in an industrial park. I invite them to stay around for that. So on this overview we have is the heavy industrial zones in Lancaster County. The application that was made was to amend the regulations in the HI to make specific regulations for an asphalt plant. Right now, under HI zoning, asphalt plants and other general extremely heavy industrial uses are regulated under restricted heavy uses, and they have setbacks and the like to happen. The background for this, I also wanted to make a correction on this that Ms. Lineberger corrected me on the last meeting, that we had talked about this being a relocatable plant. This is not a mobile plant. It is something that would be placed in space. And also to reiterate that these are regulated not just by state and federal laws, but in our laws. The corrections that I wanted to make, thank you for allowing me to make that earlier, in that my mapping skills are good, but my location-based information was wrong. So I have corrected that map, and there are no parcels north of 5. There are parcels south of 5, and there are parcels on 5, but there are no parcels north of 5 zoned highway industrial or heavy industrial. The areas that are zoned in the county that would be affected by this application are in purple on the map, and they're scattered throughout the mid to the south portion of the county. Those are any of those properties would be allowed to use any of the permitted uses in the heavy industrial zones. When we did this application, or ran this through the Planning Commission, we ran a comparison based on what we have in our current zone and where the changes were made, and if they were more restrictive or less restrictive than our zone's allowance. The ones that were in the yellow are where they were reducing the restrictions in our code. The ones in the green were the ones where they were increasing the restrictions from what we had in the code, and the others were left alone because there was not a comparison. We also, as we talked about, compared to other jurisdictions, Lancaster's separation requirements is based on mileage, half mile, quarter mile, or a mile away in most things, not all, but in most, for heavy industrial issues. And so we came out on top of the separation from residential uses. In previous discussions, we also talked about the option for a conditional use. So I wanted to put the definition of conditional use back up on the screen for anyone that wanted to look at that, to talk about how conditional uses are those that are generally compatible with other uses permitted in the zoning district, not necessarily other uses outside of the zoning district, but generally compatible in a industrial area. But because of their unique characteristics or potential impacts on the surrounding neighborhood and or the county as a whole, require individual consideration on their location, design, configuration, and operation. This is the kind of thing where I know somebody asked, why don't you listen to the constituents? I know that you guys do listen to the constituents, but as staff that provides you with the technical data and the data to support your definitions, we don't have an opportunity to survey the public about what they like and what they don't like. We go by what the information is based on planning processes and facts. Conditional use is the closest thing I can get to giving you the opportunity to have the public input on where things go. Because of a certain look at the way a business goes, this would require not only a public hearing with the Planning Commission, but also a review here at the council, so that you would have the final say as to whether a conditional use was located on that particular property where it wants to locate or not. Some examples of conditional uses we already use this rule for in the UDO is crematorium, outdoor kennels, racetracks, we do have one, nightclubs and bars, vehicle services. You may remember we've had several conditional uses come for you for car washes in the Indian Land area, correctional facilities and pool halls. This is a sampling of conditional uses that is found currently in the UDO. The Planning Commission, they did vote against this recommendation at their November 21st, 2023 meeting. Comments centered on the need to consolidate text amendments into the work being done to the UDO. So this is a concern that the Planning Commission has, that having text amendments outside of the UDO reworking is taking away time from staff that they could be doing on the UDO. And that's all my slides.
Ms. Harden, could
Yes,
you
sir.
point out on the map there, or tell us on the map there, where the Lineberger construction is actually located?
Yes, sir.
I believe it's right next to the 521 area there, or is it further south from there?
See if you can see the 521 shield on the map in the area. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Just a little north of that, right? Just a little north, right there. Right in there. It's on Kershaw-Camden Highway at the point where the highways converge back into a single road, and it is south of the Lancaster city limits. However, it is abutting the Lancaster city limits. And in recognition of that, when the applicant brought forth the changes that they wanted to make to this, one of the conditions and the changes that they wanted to make was that the separation was based on the use abutting them, not the jurisdiction. And in part, that was because there were comments about, well, you're up against the city jurisdiction on one side, but that's still being impacted by what you have. So we're not going to recommend anything that doesn't take into account the neighborhood around it, no matter what the jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, I did Google a couple of asphalt plants to the Harris Teeter in Indian Land. Ms. Lineberger's asphalt plant is 18.5 miles from the Harris Teeter in Indian Land. The Farabee asphalt plant off of 485 in North Carolina is actually 15.6 miles to Harris Teeter in Indian Land. There are also a couple of plants in York County and Union County as well that would probably be within that same proximity of mileage.
And may I add a qualifier? You said Ms. Lineberger's plant, she doesn't have one yet?
Well,
Just
the
proposed
location, I'm
plant.
sorry.
Thank you. I didn't want to, I have misspoken in previous meetings
Thank you
on
for
this one.
correcting me.
I would like to make sure that I get all the things clear. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms.
It was a lot of discussion on the second reading of this ordinance, and I represent District 2, and I think this potential plant is in my district, either Steve's.
It's right on the border.
Border of mine and Steve Harper's district. None of my constituents have said anything, called me, or voiced any opinion toward this. Hold up now. You had your opportunity. Give me my opportunity. So I'm basing my decision, as I'm sure a lot of us up here base our decisions on, constituents. Also, it's other things we look at. The way some of you are coming at us, it's like we don't consider anything but what individuals want. We have to look at the entire county. You know, we listen to you, I read all your emails, and I listen, but the bottom line, I have to make a decision that I think is going to benefit this entire county. It may not be a decision that you are in favor of, but that's because I was voted to represent District 2 and the entire county. Sometimes we may vote in favor of your project, sometimes we won't. But just give us the credit that we do our homework and we do keep our constituents in mind. Thank you.
Any more discussion?
I got a couple of questions. One,
Why didn't they ask for a variance on this?
We don't have the opportunity to allow for use variances in the code, and this is a use. This would be a difference in the use as well as the setbacks and the location. The holistic.
Variance on the setbacks?
There would have to have been variances on the setbacks and on the size. And pardon me?
You could have applied for those or not?
They could have
Just
applied for
curious.
those, sure, but the use would not have been a variance.
But it was allowed in heavy industrial.
Right.
But are we not?
There is an opportunity to
No,
go
it
BZA.
was allowed. It's allowed with greater setbacks. It's a restricted use.
Right. The proposal was to take it out as a separate use and give it separate regulations. Yes, they could have applied for a BZA.
All right, that answered my question. They could have done that right, and then it would only apply to that particular location.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you about this piece of property up here.
Yes.
That piece of property, I think, would qualify under the current heavy industrial restricted use for an asphalt plant by right.
If it met the conditions.
I think it would. And I actually know that it probably did, because the town of Van Wyck, back before Treetops, they were right here. They were going to put an asphalt plant. And the town, before it was a town, those citizens protested and it was defeated. My point is, that property there could be an asphalt plant by right as it stands. And what this council is doing, and this one passes tonight, and it was written as a motion that asphalt plants in heavy industrial will be a conditional use, and I'm assuming we can set the conditions.
Yes. Yes to all the above. There is a caveat on the grouping of the lots up on Van Wyck that there's a portion of it that is not fair, but the backside of it, yes. Yes, a conditional use can be determined at your call, and yes, you can either accept the application conditions that the applicant provided or provide different ones. If you want to provide different ones, I would recommend you go send that back to the Planning Commission, because they weren't able to review anything different than what's on the agenda.
And I would suggest that all you citizens that are here come to the Planning Commission and the council meeting when this item comes up, because this council has committed to making asphalt plants a conditional use in heavy industrial. So you may say that we're loosening restrictions when in fact we may be tightening them after we get past this one asphalt plant.
That's true, because right now it's allowed by right without review by you. If it were to be conditional use, it would not be allowed by right without your permission.
And this site is actually south of Lancaster, and has always been heavy industrial, and actually is this area has really been improved with the Lineberger construction, building a new headquarters right up the road. You've got Lancaster County Natural Gas has took the old Porterbelt Lumber Company and made it into Operations Center. We've got Don's Construction. This is a concrete additive plant that is right there. This property that has rail running through it, and it's the crow flies. It's less than 2 miles from my house. And at one time, back in the 70s, 80s, there was an asphalt plant actually on this site. So for me, there's not a better site for it to go. It's centrally located. There's a lot of roads to be paved, not only in the Panhandle, but all over the county. This will generate sales tax for the county as they'll be selling wholesale to other construction companies.
Can I make some comments and
Go
some
ahead.
questions? So first, what happens, well, first, how long between this vote and the time that we would potentially get a conditional use?
I can bring that to you in March.
So 2 months away. Okay. What happens if someone comes in between now and March and they want to put an asphalt plant on that parcel on Highway 5?
If they meet the conditions that are outlined in this.
The reduced restrictions, yes.
Then they would be able to apply for the permit.
So the conditional use would not benefit the folks in Indian Land at all under that scenario?
The conditional use would not be beneficial to anyone regardless of location because it wouldn't be in place.
Okay, so it wouldn't benefit anyone if they wanted to put an asphalt plant there between now and March?
Right, if your priority is
Okay.
conditional use, then that would not be available.
How far away is Van Wyck from this site? The one on Highway 5?
I did not do that measurement, I
That's
apologize.
probably about a mile or so from the town limit. It's not a mile from the town limits. It's probably
adjacent.
half a mile to the.
It's adjacent.
It's adjacent to the Lancaster city limits, and it is on
You mean the Van Wyck town
Van Wyck,
limits?
yeah, Van
the
Wyck's.
Van Wyck site is adjacent to adjacent to Rock Hill and very close to Van Wyck.
But we're talking about somebody putting in an asphalt plant and coming before you before March. Can you not? Can you not?
So that, hold on.
I think it's worth, if we want this to be conditional use going forward, after we take action tonight, that's going to start the process because we are applying to staff that we want to do that. If someone did come up and want to make an application, they would have to almost do it tomorrow, would they not,
No.
to be on equal footing? Because they still got to take the
No.
same steps. Would they not have to go to the planning commission just like an ordinance to go to the planning commission?
Let me offer this, if I may, and I want to check this with our county attorney first. If you want to make a change soon after this ordinance, if you want to let the ordinance go through and make a change soon after that, you don't have to wait for it to go to the planning commission to give it first reading. Do you also do the condition where once first reading it acts as if it's in place until it's third reading? I forgot the term for that.
You're talking about the pending ordinance?
Pending ordinance doctrine.
Yes.
So here's something we have not talked about yet. It is a way to progress a review outside of the typical schedule. If you were to pass an ordinance, the first reading of an ordinance, and enact the pending ordinance doctrine and say, this is the ordinance we want, we're going to pass this down to the planning commission, we're going to give it first reading today, and enact it as if it's operational, then no matter when the planning commission gets it back to you, then you go back to your second reading. But what that means is that you could start the process for the conditional use today, next week, the week after that. Well, not today. I apologize because it's not on the agenda. But you could get it on the agenda of your next meeting and say, we're going to give first reading to an ordinance that's going to make this a conditional use. And then we're going to have the planning commission hold a public hearing, and we'll have second reading after the planning commission has done their due diligence.
How come when I asked that question at the last, I had a long discussion. I said the council can do whatever it wants to do, and you said no, it has to go them. So where does this new information come from?
You inspired me. You actually, we sat and we thought about it, we talked about it. It is because of your concern that I looked for ways to get to what you needed in the fastest way possible without breaking any of the rules of procedure.
All right, do we need a motion to make that happen?
No, sir. You need to put it on your agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, well, can I ask the chairman to put it on the agenda?
I would have no opposition to it going on the agenda.
That would still put us a month and a half away, so there's still a gap.
It would only put us 2 weeks out because the process
No. The total process to get it approved would be about a month and a half. Yes.
Yeah, but it's
But
not-
it would be as if it was enacted. With the pending ordinance doctrine, what that does is that says it has the power of law right now. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to make all houses in Indian land red, which you don't. But let's say you did. You could pass a first reading of an ordinance that says, from this day forward, all houses in Indian land will be built and painted red, and put a pending ordinance doctrine on that. And then you send that to the Planning Commission, and the people from Indian land come down on the Planning Commission and say, no, we don't want that. But anybody that came in with a permit after that first reading, until the time that you kill that ordinance, would have to follow that.
So it's basically between now and the next meeting, so about
Yes.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
You wanted an alternative. County attorney and I, we were steamrolling things and steam. I'm blowing up.
So let me ask you, has anyone called about additional asphalt plants in our county?
No one has called me about any additional asphalt plants, and I'm unaware
You've had
of any.
no discussions about.
I have had no phone calls about additional asphalt plants. I cannot speak for other staff members.
Has anyone else that you're aware of had a conversation about additional asphalt plants?
I don't recall. If it has been a serious discussion, there have been questions. What can we do? Hey, if I want to do it, what do I need to do? That kind of call has happened. But I don't know that there has been any set discussions on location or place or size or any of that. I'm sorry.
So people are wondering.
That was a yes.
Hold on. Let me. So my recommendation and what I would suggest, because I don't want to block this. I hear you all. What I would suggest is if we could do an amendment, because I think what everyone is concerned about is that parcel on Highway 5. Would it be possible to limit it? But the parcels that are going to affect the Indian land that really would apply for this is that one on Highway 5, because everything below that larger parcel, I believe, would already fit under the current scenarios because of the size of that parcel.
Yeah, but I think I am concerned about all the parcels in Lancaster, kind of.
I am.
And really, this thing has brought to light that asphalt plants are allowed by right in certain size things. Now they're going to be only allowed under conditional use, which will allow the Planning Commission, the public, and the county council to weigh in it. And I could assure you, if they do on that one on 5, you'll have a lot of people here.
If you let me finish, I'm not talking about not stopping anything that we're talking about. I agree. We need to do this holistically, and we should have done this holistically. We're doing this ass backwards, if you ask me. But since we're in the situation that we're in, what I'm trying to do is cover that gap period that we're talking about, those 2 weeks. So can we put in the ordinance that this amendment will apply to this no less than 6 acres, but no greater than 10 acres? Can we put that limitation on it?
Jose, are you adding to in the second reading, we had attachment to the amendment, some
We were trying to do
information about getting it back to us before another plant could come in. We discussed this, and this is what I would hope. When an issue like this comes up, don't come to the third reading. Come to the first, the second, so you can understand all the discussions.
I have been against this in every single.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. And Planning Commission, so you won't miss any discussions, because we have discussed this. And what?
No.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on. It is online, and it's at public view if you want to look for it.
Can we get?
All right.
Can I get an answer to that question, Ms.
On
Harden?
number 5, isn't that heavy industrial site already occupied with a company already that has a fee in lieu agreement?
I don't know. There is a little company on there where the garbage transfer station was going to be put, but there's a little company there, and I don't know who they are.
Is there an issue with putting a restriction to say that this will apply to no parcels that are greater than 10 acres at the time of this ordinance?
I would answer that as a conditional answer. I think we could make it work if we can fix it in 2 weeks, because we'll have to find a nexus for that 6 to 10 acres to tie it to, or amend it.
I'm surprised about that, because I asked about that several times before when you and I were having conversations, and I believe there are emails between us where I've been bringing this up multiple times, even after the first reading.
Because there's
so I
no
think that nexus has already been created.
Because there's no nexus for the 6 to 10 that relates to the size of the use that's proposed. It's difficult, and you can do difficult things. I cannot advise you as a professional that is something that I would recommend. But this is your...
You mentioned to me, Ms. Harden, when we had a conversation about this, and you told me that we could do that.
Yes.
And you were checking with Ms. Lineberger, and you said Ms. Lineberger had approved that.
I apologize. Okay, I apologize.
There's an email.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is.
So what I would recommend is to cover that gap period, we go ahead and we say it will be no less than 6 acres,
and no more
or
than
no
10.
greater than 10 acres. We can make it no greater than 15 acres. And the reason, the nexus for that, would be that we don't want a sizable asphalt operation that close to Indian land or to the Catawba River, to be perfectly frank. So I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to state that this ordinance would apply to parcels that are no less than 6 acres and no greater than 15 acres at the time of this ordinance approval.
You okay with that?
But I
Have an amendment. Do I have a second? Then we'll have discussion.
Well, I'm going to second it for discussion purposes.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mr. Blackman.
So the parcel in question that's before us for third reading is greater than 10 acres, is it not?
It's 6.7, I believe it was.
I have to look at the report. My apologies. I don't have it memorized.
I think it's 6 plus acres.
I believe it's 6.7 acres.
It's part of a bigger industrial complex.
But is it a carved out deeded parcel?
It's been
It
platted.
might be.
Yes, the parcel is bigger. It's a big parcel. Cut out. That's right. Do it first, maybe.
I had said 15 acres.
Yeah.
15.
Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, I'm just curious as to this ordinance that we're at third reading. The parcel in question is I don't think it's actually platted out and deeded out. I think it's part of a bigger parcel. So if we put a limitation on it like that, I think this request fails.
Doesn't the application reference it as 6.7 acres?
I'm looking at the agenda items. Because text amendments don't require acreage to be listed on them.
I'm just concerned, we're talking about one parcel of land, we don't even know who owns it upon number 5.
Right.
And somebody has not even talked about putting an asphalt plant on it, and they got 10 working days to make a deal with the landowner and come to terms to put in an application. I think the odds of that happening are 1 in a billion, so I just can't support it.
They don't have to be the landowner right now. The current property owner could apply for that use and then sell their property or have it assigned or leased to a property that would operate as an asphalt plant, and that could happen within 2 weeks. very easily.
Any more discussion on the amendment before we vote on it?
Well, I think we're waiting to hear.
Ms. Feinberg, you have any comments? Is she here?
I just want to know how many acres of property that we're talking about.
It's 20.6.
He's the only one that's got the answer.
Well, the entire acreage is 89. The site.
Yeah, it is not plotted out. There's not separate. It is a part of a bigger piece of property, yes. And I don't think anywhere on the application it lists
The acreage.
how much property. No, it doesn't. If you look.
All right, the comments are only up here. Citizens had you, no discussion is up here. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, it is part of it's like 89 acres behind the railroad track. It is a much bigger area.
All right, does this amendment be affected since it's not platted out? What's the implications of that legally for this amendment?
I'm not sure I can even answer that, Councilmember Graham. I mean, we don't have anything at the moment platted out. We don't. I mean, if you make an amendment and it's reducing a size to do something, then that becomes your amendment if it passes. I mean, that's what it would be.
That's my concern.
Yeah, in terms
about
of her piece of property, she's telling us that it's 89 acres. So I'm not exactly sure how this is going to look.
Muddying the water is what we're doing.
Yeah, I think this is a non-issue.
Yeah.
Any more discussion on the amendment before we vote?
I think where the 6 acres comes in is under permitted location and size. It references such uses shall be cited on a parcel of not less than 6 acres.
And we'll vote on the amendment.
So if you're, I want us to be very careful on this amendment because our attorney hasn't advised us, but I think that if we voted for the amendment, we effectively kill what we're trying to do to get this parcel approved. So, I want everybody to understand, if you vote for the amendment, you will kill this location, in my opinion.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Louise.
So if this parcel is 89 acres, then why are we amending it to less than 6 acres?
That was just in line with the other counties around us. That's what the attorney who wrote up the proposed amendment recommended.
So you don't need that, and you don't have, on that 89 acres, you don't have anywhere where it's half a mile away so that it would meet the current restrictions. No. You don't have that anywhere on the 89 acres.
No, she showed it to you on the first reading.
Yeah.
No.
So
yeah, that.
Mr. Louise, I think what we're going to say here, if we pass this, is it's a minimum size of 6 acres. So
why are we doing that? If she doesn't need that, can't we say it has to be a minimum of 20 acres then?
No.
Let's say minimum of 20 acres. Would that work for you?
None of that property is separated out.
Right. So
how would you do that? Would that?
So you could say it could be a minimum of 20 acres or 21 acres, and that wouldn't affect this?
I'm not sure how that would affect.
Well, I think if all you're saying is, okay, just a minute ago, I think we were saying a range of 6 to 10. Now we're saying if we adopted an amendment that said a minimum of 20 acres, you do meet a minimum of 20 acres because you just said it's how many acres? 89 acres. So, yeah, that I think would be a...
Okay, so let's say a minimum of 21 acres, because I think that parcel that I'm concerned about is 20.6 acres. So,
I think we're okay there.
The issue we have is that this is an industrial park with future heavy industrial sites that if we restricted to 20 acres, we're restricting the rest of that park.
No, hold,
Sir,
no.
one more outburst from you, and I'm going to ask that you be removed.
Let me make something clear. I'm not saying that we're changing the use for everything else. All I'm saying is for the asphalt plant, that it would apply for the minimum 21 acres. Correct, Ms. Harden? I think I'd be okay with that.
I think you got a good solution there.
Okay.
You don't? Why not, Billy?
No, I'm not going to let him.
It's muddy and all this, what's Ms. Trying to do with this here?
This is an 89-acre heavy industrial site.
Right.
The other parcels will be, if you dedicate 20 acres to the asphalt plant, you're going to limit the size of the other industrial sites.
It's not doing that. All we're saying is that if you're going to have an asphalt plant, correct me if I'm wrong, it has to be a minimum 21-acre parcel. So it wouldn't restrict any of the other uses.
It doesn't mean that that other part of that parcel can't be, her 89 acres cannot be used. I mean, it can be used for other things
Correct.
that are in the heavy industrial classification.
May I help?
Yes, you may, because you're the expert.
A minimum limit for an acreage is a ticket to get you to the permit level. You have to have so much acreage. If you put in a minimum of 21 acres, nothing less than 21 acres will have the opportunity to apply for the asphalt plant under the regulations that are proposed.
Mr. Louise is trying to make sure the one in Van Wyck does not meet the requirement, but this one still would meet the requirement.
Correct.
Thank you.
So why wouldn't the one on Van Wyck meet that requirement?
What was the question?
Why would the one, if you're setting a minimum of 21 acres, that site's more.
No, it's 20.6.
I'm just going on what Mr. Louise said.
This site up here?
Yes, it.
Yep, it's 20.6.
Let's double check before you say anything. Let's see.
Are you saying this would apply to the HI district partial, or if there's 3 or 4 parcels, there's got to be at least 21 acres?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And of course, if we have some unease about that as we go through the conditional use process, we can change that number.
Correct.
Back to 6 or whatever this council feels worthy. The purpose is to get some distance separation from our Indian land constituents.
Instead of us jumping into this and making quick decisions, it's something that hadn't been thought out. We need to handle this, what's before us tonight. Then let's work on the conditional use, and it's going to take but 2 weeks to get it done, and it'll simplify all this. This is ridiculous sitting here trying to do something that somebody else's property that don't have anything to do with this.
And I thought we discussed that at second reading to make sure that that everybody, all the constituents would be satisfied with what the discussions around what we're going to do. And now we're starting over. It's like we're starting over from scratch. And we have discussed this. We discussed this at our second reading. We came up with the conclusion that what we were going to do, we put it in the form of an amendment. That's why if you're going to be involved from the beginning discussion. And I don't want no feedback, okay?
Let's, Ms. Harden, is it 20.6 acres?
You know how to read. You can go online and look at the agenda like everybody else.
Mr. Blackman, it is 20. It is 20.6 acres. So 21 acres would suffice.
Okay.
Simplify it, Steve. Simplify it, Steve.
So I would like to revise my amendment to provide that we change the ordinance language to provide for a minimum of 21 acres instead of the 6.
Do I have a second?
Well, no, we got to withdraw.
I'll withdraw my original amendment.
And the second has to.
It was already seconded.
I would draw it also.
right,
I'm having an issue with this. We're talking about something that's only 2 weeks.
I agree. I'm okay with that.
2 weeks.
I don't have a problem waiting 2 weeks to have it done.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it either.
I do, because somebody can come in. Somebody can come in.
If they do, we cannot.
No,
Jose,
we can't.
We had this discussion at second
We did,
reading.
and I voted against it.
And you're going to vote against it tonight, I'm sure.
100%. If it,
Wait.
unless it has that,
But
unless
wait,
it changes that.
We came up and we agreed with your amendments that night.
That was not my amendment. If you look back at the voting, I voted against that conditional use.
You voted against the amendment and the ordinance.
I voted.
You made the amendment.
I voted for the amendment. I got overridden on the amendment, and then I voted against this because I wanted the conditional use to apply as of that day, and that got voted down.
But the amendment did the amendment stand? Did we have an amendment to that?
We did.
There was a
Second reading.
second amendment that was offered by Mr.
There was an
Blackman.
amendment to that ordinance.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, let me make something clear that you restated your amendment. If you go 20 acres, 21, does she have to dedicate 21 acres to that? She can dedicate 6 acres. How many acres does she got to dedicate to the asphalt plant?
She has enough acreage to go forward if you make it a minimum of 21 acres. She does not have to change her land to do that.
Yeah, but does she have to plat out 21 acres?
No.
No.
She can plat out 2.
She doesn't have to plat anything out.
But when she goes to subdivide to
If she were to subdivide it in the future, she would have to make sure there were at least 21 acres on the use where the asphalt plant is, if she wants to in the future.
Which is why I'm okay, y'all, with moving ahead, okay? But if the amendment's out there, if we go for it, we can always come back later and reduce it to six acres if that's the wishes of the council.
Let's have all this on before us, and in 2 weeks, do this other stuff. We got
Okay.
time to think about it.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
My concern is that there is a gap period within those 2 weeks.
There ain't nothing going on.
There is.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Mr. Graham a question?
Amended motion on the floor.
Do we have an
Hold
motion?
on a minute.
Mr. Graham, didn't you say earlier that this site meets current regulations already?
I think so. But I don't know that for a fact, Brian. But is there a motion on the floor yet?
We have a motion and amendment. Now, you
the
rescinded
amendment
your,
was withdrawn.
you
Not been a
rescinded
second.
your
That's all
amendment.
withdrawn.
The amendment's withdrawn. There's no amendment on the
So
floor.
What's on the floor?
I'm making a motion to amend the ordinance so that it provides a minimum of 21 acres, and I would ask the council to please do this for the residents that are before you.
For Mr. Louise, do I have a second? Hearing no second, the amendment dies. Any more discussion on the original ordinance 2023-1879? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, likewise. We have 4 and 3 opposed. So third reading passes 4-3. Let's move on down to 8B. First reading of ordinance 2024-1888 regarding amending the future land use designation for property located at 1662 Millen Park Drive from Employment Center to neighborhood mixed use. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion for Ms. McGriff. I have a second.
Second.
Second for Mr. Carnes.
This is an amendment to allow Marvin Academy a pre-K 12 through.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, please. Could we just wait about 2 or 3 minutes, let everybody leave or calm down, because I can't hear, and this is no way for civilized people to act.
No.
We do have an officer in
You don't
here.
have to speak. No, sir.
Steve,
No.
we got an officer in here.
No.
We need help.
Call me tomorrow.
And you're acting uncivilized. Thank you. Hey, officer, no, officer. Will you remove this gentleman from the building, please?
They're going to be interesting. All I'm going to say.
Mr. Luis and Mr. Grant, thank you very much for yeah. I hope that this is not
Steve, I'm sick of these people acting this way. Sick of it. They give us no respect.
Out too.
Where's the officer? He needs to be removed. That's disrespectful.
Can I ask everyone?
All right, you had your
Listen.
chance in public hearing to speak. All right, thank you.
That's disrespectful.
They are my people. 100% they are my people.
All right, let's get order. Let's get this meeting back to order and get it going. Let's finish up. All right, we're starting back.
Absolutely not. I'm gonna talk to
Anybody
my
else
people
wants
about
to
voting.
exit, go ahead. If not, we're going to go ahead and start. We have a first reading. We have a motion for approval. First reading, Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir. This is a motion to change the comprehensive plan's future land use to allow a pre-K through 12 school to locate in McMillan Industrial Park. The applicant purchased the property and sought a rezoning, at which point they came to the Planning Commission, who recommended denial, and came to you, and you were open to the discussion, but there were some conditions that needed to be met before this went forward. One of which was that the comprehensive plan did not support a change in the zoning in this place. So in order to change that, you have to amend the comprehensive plan. So that process has been moved through the Planning Commission and the public hearing for that. There was a second part where the applicant had to provide an amendment to their covenants, conditions, and restrictions document, because being that is McMillan Industrial Park, they did not have this school as a use, or any school as a use allowed in their covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The applicant did that and provided the copy. The copy was validated, and it's official and good and to go forward. So that's one more step down. The third thing we have that we don't know the answer to yet, but we can move forward on this and get it before second or third reading, if you're interested in moving it forward, is that McMillan Industrial Park is part of a multi-county business park with Chesterfield County. And Chesterfield County and Lancaster County work together on the multi-county business park in order to provide jobs in both areas. The fee in lieu of taxes that died with this property when it was sold without being recorded with the South Carolina Office of Revenue is part of the input that goes through Lancaster County and back and forth from Chesterfield County. What we don't have right now is the input from Chesterfield County on the potential change. But again, we are working on getting that, and we can get that for you before the next reading if you decide that you want to recommend this for first reading. To give you a review, the property is shown on the screen on the left and from the ground on the right. The property is located, as said, in the industrial park. There's also not been a traffic impact analysis provided. Instead, the applicant provided a memo stating the site will not cross the 50 trip threshold for the TIA. We've not been able to confirm whether that was valid or not, because there are many options for schools. If they are not able to meet the traffic impact analysis, they can do what Mr. Cillian said in one of the meetings, like a rolling enrollment or a rolling arrival to the school system, where certain number arrive at certain points of the day and they're assigned release at the same points, so that they have so that not all of the students come in at the same time. The compatibility report from the staff was that this request was incompatible with potential uses in the site. As we talked about a lot, there are separation requirements from some uses to residential uses and to schools and the like. This would extend that incompatibility. The applicant has provided the CCR, so that is no longer a valid point. The incompatible with multi-county business park we have not determined, and the comprehensive plan, like I said, until you change it, it doesn't support it. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended denial of the application at their last meeting based on the points on the screen, except for that we have now achieved the amended CCNR.
All right, any questions on this? So everything is signed and signed off by the
way that
have been changed.
The way that the covenants and restrictions listed how the amendments were run was followed to the letter, and they have provided that information. The points that we have on the slide for those that are listening or watching online and might not be able to read it is the property is zoned LI, which is light industrial in coordination with the multi-county business park, that if it's converted to an INS, which is the institutional zone, one that we provide for schools, that this will negatively impact future expansion and/or industrial development within the park by forcing additional separation requirements and setbacks on adjacent lots, that to convert one of the rare industrial zone properties from the high-demand industrial land area is to remove future economic development opportunities from the Panhandle, and that we still had to get word for being multi-county business park.
Any discussion?
I do, Mr. Chair. As I've said before, we discussed this, we're putting this school here. It's not a place for a school. It's not a good, safe place for these children with it being an industrial park, because you never know what can happen and when you plants and stuff. So this also, this parcels up there is not completely built out yet. And also, if somebody moves out, somebody can move in. With a school being in there, this could deter other people wanting to come in. I don't want to go in there. I might have something that could be hazardous to these kids. So I'm going to look somewhere else. So, you know, this ain't a good fit. I promise you to put a school in an industrial park. It's not. I support the school coming there. Don't have a problem. But find you a piece of land somewhere and put it, or buy another building, but not in an industrial park. It's just not feasible.
Mr. Chairman, when this first came up, I thought it was a good idea. Be another opportunity for schools. I know somebody made a comment in some of our emails that it might help relieve some of the problems with the school district. I don't think this school's quite large enough to give a whole lot of relief to the school district. But after much consideration, after driving up and looking at the parcel, I concur with Mr. Mosteller. I just can't see putting a school in the middle of light industrial. And the other part is that bothers me is we'll be giving up one of our industrial sites that can be used later. So for that reason, I'm not in favor of it.
And I agree with Mr. Mosteller and Mr. Blackman tonight.
Well, the issue I have with it is I have voted against some rezonings and voted for some, and I can think of 3 that are around the Van Wyck 521 corridor, and those applicants did not do what they said they were going to do, and I wish I hadn't voted for some of them. So I'm concerned about if this school doesn't do what it's going to do there, what else will come in there. I also am concerned about putting a school in an industrial.
And we was talking about what you mentioned, Alan, about this helping overcrowding other schools, but I think the school has 150 capacity. My understanding what I've heard before. And for what I heard was, I remember they were transferring 100 kids from Waxhaw area. So really, you ain't got but about 50 slots for Indian Land kids. So that's not a big help to our schools.
At all.
So let me get this straight, just so that I'm clear and so the voters are clear. We're going to allow an asphalt plant on Highway 5, but we don't want a school in a light industrial area, in an area where we are desperately in need of schools, because you're concerned about that safety.
No, we're going to put a conditional use on that.
I just want to be very clear, because come November, there are going to be elections, and I hope the people of this county vote.
Well, I won't be up.
No, but there are several in Indian Land that will, and there's some others that are voting.
I mean, I don't have a problem. If you don't, there'll not be an asphalt plant on number 5. There just won't be, because they're going to put a conditional use on it.
That's right.
And if they don't, I'm going to quit the council that day.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
I know this area is zoned light industrial. It's more of a office park than it is an industrial park. There is some manufacturing, or will be whenever our friends move up there and start their plant up, but right now they're just using it for warehousing. And the rug place does no manufacturing there at all. Theirs is all warehousing. All the tenants in the park have signed off on this and think it's a good deal for, maybe for their employees, but very much so for the community. So for that reason, I'm going to support the motion.
All the, just to be clear, all the industrial people in that park have signed off and said it's okay.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval of first reading, 2024-1888. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed likewise. First reading of ordinance 2024 fails by a vote of 3, 4, and 4 opposed. Let's move on down to our discussion and action items. Appointment to the Catawba Regional Workforce Development Board. We have Josephine Jacobacur to the Catawba Regional Workforce Development Board to fill a 3-year term that would end on 12/31/2026. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Do we have a motion and a second?
We have a motion. Motion for Mr. McGriff.
Second.
Second for Mr. Graham. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's go on down to, I've got a, where is it?
Executive session.
Yeah, we got I've got another, I need a motion to go in executive
Motion to go in
session
executive.
to discuss receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to the acquisition of property and receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to the economic development project. And I would like to invite our economic development director into the second one. So
I made the motion.
have made a motion for Mr. Graham, have a second for Ms. McGriff. All in favor, raise your right hand. You have unanimous approval. We are now in executive session. like to call this meeting, Lancaster County Council, back to order. Do I have a motion to come out of executive session? Motion from Ms. McGriff.
Second.
Second from Mr. Graham. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval.
Mr. Chairman, council met in executive session for 2 items. The first is the receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter relating to acquisition of property, and the second being receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter relating to an economic development project. No motions were made and no votes were taken.
Thank you. At 8:10, I have a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion for Mr. Graham, second from Mr. Mostello. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We are now adjourned.